Welcome back to Session 9 of Business by Design. We've covered a lot of ground in your business building strategies in the last 8 weeks. Mostly, we've discussed the disciplines and the activities and the skills and, of course, the marketing to attract and win more listings. Today, we're going to work on how to win buyers so you can sell more homes and do it even faster. Around the world, every great agent knows the key to success is to win more listings, right? Of course it is. And consider on the other side of the listing that sells is always a buyer. I believe you can improve dramatically in this area, which will in turn earn you even more listings. So let's jump in. We're going to work on 2 things. Number 1 is a model for working with your buyers that generates loyalty and sales. And number 2, how buyer leads can actually generate you even more listings. So first, let's discuss the process. We believe in a 5-step buyer approach. Step number 1 is you connect and you qualify their needs, their motivation, and of course, their timing. Number 2, you meet to explain how you work and you show them the advantages of working with you exclusively. Number 3, showing property and asking the most important questions to get to the yes. Step 4, presenting offers, negotiating, and closing the sale. And step 5 is what do you do when you can't find a home that ultimately they like? What we're going to do now is break down each of the steps of the process, making sure that you feel good and you're empowered to jump right in and take action. Let's take a look at step 1, connecting and qualifying. Today's buyers, as you know, are more sophisticated and have access to websites, portals, and information where they look at homes, discover neighborhoods, read up on pricing and valuations, and so much more. Bottom line, because of this information accessibility, our role as the salesperson has become more of a consultant. Our job is to ask questions, discover their needs, wants, desires, timing, and motivation, and then show them homes that match their criteria and help them navigate the purchase of that next property. So we understand it all begins with asking questions. Let's take a minute and review the most important questions we should always start with when we're qualifying that buyer for the first time. Question number 1, how long have you been looking for a new home? What if they tell you 18 months? What if they say 3 years? What if they say we just started the process? Each of those answers gives you different insights into where you're going to take this buyer. Question number 2, what websites are you looking at now and how's the process going? I love that 2-part question. What are you looking at and how's the process? What if they tell you they're devouring every portal all over the place and they're frustrated by the process? Sounds like they really need your help. Question number 3, we get into the specifics about what they're looking for. So you say, tell me specifically what you're looking for. How many bedrooms? How many bathrooms? Define your ideal kitchen. Tell me about the neighborhoods you like and the neighborhoods you don't like. What else do you want? What else is important? And again, you know the client and you know the community you serve. Perhaps you need to ask, do they want a terrace? Or is it about a garden? Or maybe they want a better view, or it's proximity to a school where they want to send their children. Maybe it's being close to the airport, the subway, the train station. At the end of the day, you can't get enough data. The more you know, the more you can narrow your search to find them the ideal home. Then, of course, we're going to ask number 4. What price range are you looking at? Question number 5, we want to ask, how will you be financing the home, or are you paying cash? And either way, we want to ask, have you met with your banker, and what have they told you? And do we have a letter that basically can describe to the seller that you have the money prepared and that you can close? Then I want to ask, question number 6, what's your time frame? How soon would you like to be in the new home? Again, this is going to help us understand their motivation. If they need to be in right away, and let's just say the spouse is pregnant and they've got twins coming, we know it's urgent. But what if they tell you, we've been looking at homes for 18 months and we don't really have a specific time frame? You and I both know that means that buyer isn't really as motivated as you would like, and they could end up using a lot of your time, which we need to be sensitive to. Question number 7, again, a great question for that person. What's your plan B if we don't find the home? What's your plan B if this doesn't work out? Again, I want to hear what their motive to act is. Then I ask number 8, who else is involved with the process and what's important to them? Once again, you may discover that someone else is involved. Maybe it's a spouse you haven't spoken with. Maybe they're buying it in a partnership with a friend. Maybe it's their parents who are giving them the money, and they're going to be the ultimate decision maker of this new purchase. So again, we need to get everybody involved. Number 9, we like to say, I'm curious, do you need to sell a home before you buy the next one? This is, of course, an opportunity to explore securing a listing that might not be exclusive, an opportunity for you for sure. And then number 10, if there was an advantage to working with me exclusively, saving you time and making the process easier for you, would you be interested in hearing more about that? And of course, we know they're going to say yes, and we're going to say wonderful. I'd love to help you find your home. So what would be the best time for us to spend 20 minutes so I can show you how we do what we do, because it's very different from other agents. How's today at 4 p.m. or is tomorrow at 5 better for you? Once you've done this, you not only know a ton about what they want, how long they've been looking, how they plan to purchase the home financially, and of course their time frame. And more importantly, you have an appointment booked to earn the right to work with them exclusively. So step number 2 is where you meet them to explain how you work and show them the advantages of working exclusively with you. Now, just like your listing appointment, there's 3 parts to it. Number 1 is confirming the meeting and sending them your pre-appointment sales package. For simplicity purposes, this will look exactly like your listing package, and instead of your marketing proposal, you'll replace it with, here's our 4, 5, 6 things we do to help you find your dream home. Everything else is exactly the same. This is our buyer process. Now, step 2 of the formula is, of course, your face-to-face meeting. And then, of course, step 3 is your follow-up in case they don't decide on the spot to work exclusively with you. So let's talk about your meeting. Of course, this could be done in a cafe sipping a latte, but ideally, I'd like the meeting to be done in your office so they can see the professional environment you work in, and of course, the power of your company and your brand. Obviously, when you meet them, you're going to greet them warmly and of course, have something to drink, some water, an iced tea, whatever is right for you, and ask them to take a seat. From there, it's all about the dialogue, which I'm going to walk you through now. So we start with, thanks for meeting with me. I'm excited to show you how we do what we do and why I hope as we conclude our meeting, you will choose to work exclusively with me. Sound good? And of course, they're going to say yes. At that point, we want to reiterate their motivation and the home that ultimately they would like to buy. So I'm just gonna remind them, you told me you're looking for a 3-bedroom, a 2-bath, with a terrace and a garden in District 13, no higher than the 2nd floor, near the train station and the school that we discussed. Is that correct? You also told me that you plan to finance the property and that you had met with your banker and everything is in order. Is that correct? Wonderful. Once I've confirmed their motivation, I might also ask, was there anything else I needed to know? Again, to get more information so as a consultant, I can serve them powerfully. Then I'm going to transition and say, now let's take a few moments and talk about what we do that's so different from all the other agents. Number one, we take the time to identify everything that's important to you. So you know we hear you and that we care about the process and ultimately want to serve you at the highest level. Have we done that? And obviously, by asking these questions and engaging this way, my hope is that they're going to smile and nod and say, yes, you have. Step 2, we take the time to find properties that match your criteria and a few that may be just outside of what it is that you want. Can I tell you why we may show you some properties that aren't exactly what you told us you wanted? They're going to say, of course. And your response is going to be, because there are no perfect properties unless you build it from scratch. Instead, I make sure that we show you the essence of what you want, and then nearly every couple I work with over time turns that property into their home. Does that make sense? And everyone knows in that moment that when you buy the house, you might paint the walls, you might redo part of the kitchen, and you're helping them understand that there is no perfect house except for the one you build, so we need to go find the essence of what it is you want so you can make it your own. Then I show them step number 3. After each property we show you, we're going to ask for feedback to find out what else you liked or what you didn't like. Then step 4, once we find the property you want, we're going to write an offer, and this is where my real expertise shows up. You see, ultimately, you're hiring me to negotiate the sale of your property and get the deal closed, which can be the most difficult part of buying a home. And that's why you need an expert. Does that make sense? Now, in that moment, I just did a check close to see if they said, yeah, that does make sense. And in that moment, as they're saying yes to you, they're agreeing to work with you exclusively. And that's why we're making this presentation. Then I transition with, once we start the process, I'm going to manage everything, working to make what can be a very stressful process as easy as possible. And if you need a mover or a handyman, I can refer you great people who help all of my clients make it easy. Sound good? They're going to say yes. Then I say, now, here's where the real work is and why so many people use me to buy a home more often than not. When we search for homes, we can't find one that's ideal for you. When you work with me, I will go out and I will market to properties that you tell me you like, that are currently not on the market, to see if those homeowners have interest in selling. This is giving you exclusive opportunities to buy homes that are not on the market, where the seller has become interested. Now, this is something that most agents would never do. I, on the other hand, believe in doing whatever it takes to serve my clients. Does that make sense? So hopefully this won't be the case for you, but if it is, you now know you can rely on me to go out and find potential sellers and ultimately your dream home, even if it's not on the market. So the only question is If I'm willing to do all of this for you, are you willing to commit and work exclusively with me to find your home? Now, at that moment, my friends, that is the moment of truth. We know that they're only going to say one of three things: yes, no, or, well, what does that mean? So if they say yes, thumbs up. If they say no, you ask, may I ask why? And they're going to tell you their objection, giving you an opportunity to handle it. What if they say, well, my brother sells houses? You know you didn't do a good enough job qualifying, right? More than likely, our experience shows they're going to ask you, well, what does that mean? And the answer is very simple. You turn to the prospect and say, what that means is you're committing not to engage other agents. Instead, you work with me. And all that means is when you see a house that you like, you call me and I show you the home versus you going directly. Does that make sense? And they're gonna go, yes, maybe they like it, maybe they don't, but it will make sense. And you back it up with, and for this loyalty, I will do more for you than any other agent in town. Does that work for you? And what we're looking to get here is approval. We want an exclusive agreement. Whether you ask them to sign something, which some agents do around the world, or you simply have a handshake agreement that says, I'm your guy, I'm your gal, I'm your agent, that's okay too. At the end of the day, what we know is this: by making a professional presentation to the couple, helping them understand this buyer or a couple, what you do better or differently and how you will do so much more than everyone else, and that all you ask in return is exclusivity. All you ask in return is that they work with you as their agent. When you get that yes, now you go out and follow the third step, which is the fun part, showing property. Now, when you do and you're showing houses, there really is only 4 great questions you should be asking. And these are the same things you told them you were going to do in your initial process. So let's look at the 4 easy questions. Number 1, as you're walking through the house, or maybe as you're finishing, you say to them, so what did you like about this property? And at that point, I might have my phone out and I'd be taking notes because I want to hear what they're saying. What did they like about the home? Then I might ask, well, what did you dislike about the house? As you can imagine with these 2 questions, the more they share, the more it's going to alter for you the next homes you show them, or by asking the third question, you're going to begin to reframe that buyer and remind them there's no perfect house. As long as we get the essence of what you want, you will ultimately make this property your home. So the third question is, you look at them and say, if you owned this house, what changes would you make to make it perfect? If you owned this house, what changes would you make? And that's when they're going to say, I really don't like that door, or the cabinets are like this. I wish the windows were bigger. So you'd say to them, so you're going to make the windows bigger if you own this house. Well, we're not saying we're going to own it, but if you did own it, what changes would you make? And again, oftentimes we're allowing the buyer to make themselves a little more committed to the property. They can imagine themselves living in that home and the changes they would make. Because remember, unless you build it, there is no perfect home. My favorite 4th question, the one you always want to ask, is you look them in the eyes and say, if you were to write an offer, how much would you offer for this home? If you were to write an offer, how much would you offer for this home? And again, you're going to get more information. So think about the questions. What did you like? What did you dislike? If you own this home, what would you change to make it your own? And if you were to write an offer, how much would you write it for? If you show them 3 or 4 houses in a day, you're going to learn a tremendous amount of information. Now, what's great about these simple questions is, again, after a few showings, the client will be conditioned to answer them, and we'll begin to see each home through the filter of these questions. The key for you really is the last two. The last two, because that's going to tell you so much about their buying decision process. So I know you're going to use those. Now, let's talk briefly about presenting offers and closing the sale. I love a simple two-step formula. Number one, I want to engage the listing agent or the seller, if it's a for sale by owner, with the following dialogue. I have a great offer on your property. It's a terrific buyer who is financially qualified and would like to buy the home. And my question for you is, what's the best way to present to you the advantages of our offer? Now, by asking this question, you're going to find out maybe they want to talk over the phone and they're just, give it to me and tell me the numbers. Some people, though, they'd like it face-to-face, while others are going to say, put it in writing and send it over. Now, I'm a big fan of presenting the offer in the seller or the agent's best modality, how they choose to accept the information. By doing this, you're making the process of them saying yes a whole lot easier. Now, step number two in my offer strategy is I'm going to ask you to write a letter or a story building up the advantages of your client and their offer. So you can tell them about the person or the family you're representing. You can explain where they work or where they're moving from, and perhaps share where they bank and that they're prepared with a loan or they're all cash. This plays obviously to the emotional side. Many people, when they're writing offers, will even include a family photo of the buyers. So it's not just about the numbers and the dollars. Then, of course, you're going to share the price that they'd like to offer and their terms. When you do this and you share it, you share the price and the terms. Once you do, shut up. Never talk over your offer. This is a mistake a lot of people make. My buyer would like to pay X, and let me tell you all the reasons why. Instead, share the number, share the terms, and shut up, allowing the seller or the agent to process. Then your job is to listen carefully to how they respond and acknowledge that most people will probably want to think it over, talk it through with a spouse, or maybe even get some outside counsel. The last part, of course, is to thank them for hearing our offer and then ask them for a time frame to when you should expect to hear back from them. And just like that, you're now in the sales game. Now, we could spend an enormous amount of time talking about what happens next. Let's keep it simple. When you present an offer, it's basically they're either going to counter the offer, they're going to accept the offer, or they're not going to respond at all and go quiet. So, as I said, we could spend hours and days teaching you hundreds, if not thousands, of tactics for negotiation. When I asked myself, what are the most important questions I've ever used in my career to move someone from a no to a yes, from offended by an offer to accepting an offer, there's only 3 questions I've ever used. And I thought what I would do is share those 3 questions with you, allowing you to use these in every negotiation you do from today forward. So let's write down the 3 best negotiation questions. They are, number 1, what's the worst case scenario if you accept the offer? Now, of course, you can change offer to any action you want them to take. What's the worst case scenario if you accept the offer? and then you shut up and listen. Now, what do we know? The human mind will not take action until they can move through the scary fears of the worst case scenario. So as a great negotiator, I'm going to ask them, what's the worst case scenario? I'm going to acknowledge that maybe my offer isn't perfect for them and that the gap between their list price and my offer or those terms is going to have fear and worry and concern and doubt. And I want to know what's the worst case scenario and let them get it all out. So I'm not going to interrupt them. I'm just going to listen and take notes and say, tell me more. I want to know everything. Then I ask question number 2. So now that you've shared that, what is the most likely scenario if you guys accepted the offer? I mean, if you did accept the offer, what's the most likely scenario? And what you're going to notice is after you ask the first question and they share their fear, their upset, maybe even their anger about the offer, when you get them fully expressed and they've shared everything, it's almost like a balloon. You know when you blow that balloon up? Once you let all the air out, there's nothing left. Well, the same thing metaphorically applies to the seller when you're presenting this offer. You let them get all the air out, then you ask, well, what's the most likely scenario? And they say, well, the most likely scenario is we close the deal, you give us a little more money and everybody's happy and we move on. Well, in that moment, you just made a sale. But you don't stop there. You ask question number 3, what's the best case scenario if you accept the offer? What's the best case scenario? And you'll be shocked how often you'll hear things like this. Well, the best case scenario is we close the deal and we get to move forward because this has been really frustrating and we just want it sold. And just like that, you made a sale. These questions are so powerful. They have allowed myself and others around the world to do billions of dollars worth of transactions by helping the borrower, right, and the seller get together and make a good decision by getting all their fears out of the way and all the emotion out of the way and ultimately getting to the best case scenario. So I'm going to encourage you to take these questions and use them all the time in every negotiation you do to ultimately get to the yes. Now, let's wrap up this session with what to do when you can't find your buyer a home they like. This is a campaign we've been teaching for years all over the world that we call the Yikes campaign. You know, yikes! I've got a buyer and there's no homes on the market. Now you can take yikes and you can replace it with any word that makes sense for you. But here and around the world with many of my clients, they just seem to like yikes as a word that has the potential seller, the homeowner, realize that you've got a problem you're trying to solve. Here's how it works. Step number 1, you have your buyer tell you the neighborhoods or districts or property types that they'd be most interested in buying that are currently not for sale. Step number 2, you write a simple letter with a headline that says, yikes! And below it, you write something as simple as this. Hi, my name is Tom and I work for, and I'm working with an amazing family or person who desperately wants to buy a home in your building or community. And as you know, there are no great properties for sale today. This creates a unique opportunity for you or one of your neighbors. Let me explain. If you've ever thought about selling, I have the one thing that every seller needs, a financially qualified buyer who is ready to move right now. and then you explain who the family or the person is, if the buyer gives you permission to use their name, use it. If they don't, no problem. You can simply describe them, and that works too. At the end of the letter, you simply ask them, if you've had any thoughts of selling, I have what you need. Would you please text, call, or email me to set up a private meeting or discussion, or perhaps a showing with my buyer? Thank you so much for reading this. Respectfully, your name at company, and provide your contact information. Now, then your job is to mail or deliver that letter to as many properties as you can that match your buyer's criteria. Now, I know one of you is watching this and saying, this sounds like a good way to get listings also. Ding, 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 ding. You got it. And guess what? The numbers are phenomenal. Here's what our data shows. For every 100 letters you get delivered, you'll receive between 3 to 5 responses, which should make you very happy, because the 3 to 5 people that respond are potential sellers who are having thoughts of selling their home. Not only could you maybe take your buyer and double end the deal, which we all like, or guess what? You might just end up with a few more listing opportunities. And that is the Yikes campaign. So we've covered a lot of ground today, and so much over the last 9 weeks. Stop for a minute, and I want you just to think about how much you've already learned. We're 9 weeks in, 9 sessions through, and I sincerely hope that you are proud of yourself and your professional development. I hope you're as passionate and excited about your career as I am in watching you. So great work, my friend, and here's your homework. Number 1, I want you to practice your buyer qualification script. Get very comfortable asking those questions. Number 2, I want you to build your buyer presentation, deciding on what you do and how you do it from the examples I shared today. And of course, your job is to make them even better. And remember, go back to your company's resources. I guarantee they have some tremendous marketing examples that you can incorporate into your buyer presentation to show that customer even greater degrees of separation as to why they should work exclusively with you. And the last one, number 3, I challenge you to create a Yikes campaign for your next buyer and implement it immediately, and you'll be happy that you did. All right, that's it. I'll see you next week for our final session of Business by Design.